Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Regional Services Committee meeting for Wednesday, June 26, 2019. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize this meeting is taking place on the traditional unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. First item is our approval of the agenda. Moved by Director Nichols, seconded by Director Marcotte. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Oh, before we get moving on, I should welcome our alternate directors today. I believe we have alternate Director Taylor, Justice, Tatham, and Goddard. I think that's all the alternates we have. Just a few today. Tatham? Sorry, my apologies. I wrote it down right, couldn't say it right though. Welcome and thanks for coming in today. And the next item on our agenda, Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Adoption of the minutes. That the minutes of the Regional Services Committee meeting of May 22nd, 2019 be adopted.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Toporowski. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is no business arising from the minutes.
Thank you. So on to public input period. Is there anyone who would like to give input this morning on items on the agenda? Seeing nobody stepping to the microphone, we will move on. No delegations today, Ms. Harrison?
There are none, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And no correspondence. And moving on to reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item R1 is a report from the Community Planning Division regarding long-range projections of population, housing and employment projections for the Cowichan Valley Regional District, and that's for information.
Thank you. So we've got some documents here for information. Is there any discussion or questions on this report? All right, so that's there for information. Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item on the agenda is R2. It's a report from Recycling and Waste Management Division regarding Recycling and Waste Management 2019 Communications and Outreach Plan, and that too is for information.
Thank you. Questions or discussion from our directors? Very quiet group. I will make a comment. I think it's a good plan, and I appreciate the scheduling as well. And I know that we'll try and build on it on a municipal level as well, and try and leverage that communication initiatives throughout the region. Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item on the agenda, R3, is a report from the Finance Division regarding regional grant and aid process for 2020, and that is for direction.
So this is for direction. Thank you. We got a hand up. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to get the report open here. Sorry, Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to recommend that option 1, which is, and I can read it for you if you like. I would like to move that option 1, reduce the RGIA budget for 2020 to 0, be accepted.
So that's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director Yanni DiNardo. Discussion. All right, no discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed, please keep your hands up. We have Director McGonigal. We'll go count them. So it carries. Sorry, I should put Director Sebring's just joined us. So Director Sebring, we have a motion on the floor. Okay, he missed the vote. Okay. So it's carried. Thank you. Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next...
We have no more items.
Director Morrison.
Director Morrison.
Given we've just made that recommendation that the regional grant and aid be reduced to 0, could I perhaps through you to staff have some clarification as to whether or not we are going to continue to have a strategic priority fund and and how we are going to address to our community groups and the likes, the fact that there will be no regional grant fund available for community groups to apply for.
Through to staff, Mr. Carruthers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take a stab at that. In terms of the strategic investment budget that the board had approved previously, that will be entirely up to the board. We'll be seeking direction during the budget process to either maintain that or to remove that from your budget. Pending approval of this recommendation at the board, I would assume that we will be making some outreach to the community to let our community know that there will not be a regional grant and aid program in 2020. That'll be subject to board approval.
Thank you. So the motion did just reduce the actual regional grant and aid, not the strategic investment fund. Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion? So I believe then we're moving on to question period. And for clarity, electoral area directors will still have their grants and aid if they choose, as well as the municipalities.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I hope you'll indulge me. I will have two questions.
Yep.
I came today specifically to hear about the long-range projections because it's very relevant to the work that the APCs are doing on their HOCP, and I'm just wondering why there wasn't a presentation by staff.
I don't believe I can answer that question. It wasn't scheduled to be part of it. I don't know if Mr. Carruthers wants to, or Mr. Anderson.
Sure, I can speak to that. I mean, there's been essentially some direction through the committees that when staff reports are coming forward, we're not generally presenting them if they're provided to the directors in their agenda package. And if the directors have questions or want to review the material, we have our staff here to respond. So that's typically what we're doing in our committee meetings. So we're following that process, Mr. Chair.
And for clarity, I believe that these projections are utilized throughout all of our planning processes. So if it's an OCP review or otherwise, staff would be incorporating this information as part of their source materials.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Carruthers. I think people come and watch the meetings procedures to learn, and if those aren't put out there or they're not commented on by the directors, it's a learning opportunity lost. My second question is with the regional grants and aid. You have voted to reduce that budget to zero. What happens to that $75,000? Does it get put over to something else, like the electoral area grant needs, or is
No.
that money just lost?
No, the budgeting process is up to the board at that time. This was direction to staff to make their budgets. Regional grants and aid are sourced through a regional function, which is, I think it's based on assessment throughout the region. So with that being gone, directors of the individual electoral areas in their budgeting process would be able to, if they wanted to, increase their electoral area grants and aid. And they could probably do some calculations with finance staff on how that would impact requisition within their individual area. So, you know, for example, if an individual electoral area director wanted to keep their requisition similar, they could see how much was requisitioned from their area to fund their portion of regional grants and aid, and then put that into their own budgets and, you know, have a similar effect on requisition or taxation. And the other areas could do the same. Us as a municipality, for example, if we said, okay, listen, we're going to be putting less into the regional grant and aid budget as a result of this, we could choose to raise our own limit at the municipality. So those decisions will be made during the budgeting process.
Thank you for that explanation, because there's some very worthy groups that are counting on that
And I do
money.
believe in sort of some of the conversations I've heard that some electoral area directors may decide to do that.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, Ms. Harrison, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Yes.
Thank you. If I can get a motion to adjourn, Director Morrison, Director McGonigal, all those in favor? Opposed, none opposed, we are adjourned, and I believe Community Services is at 11:30? 11. Thank you. 11 a.m. for our Community Services Committee. Thank you.